Hello, I'm Tony Cordato,
And I'm Peter Kukulis.
and here we're talking about property. Topic of conversation, land tax.
Aha.
Now, Peter, have you ever met anyone who loves paying land tax?
Absolutely not.
Why? Because you get nothing for it.
That's right.
Nothing in return.
Yes. You're making the government more rich.
So what's land tax? Well, the government looks at dividing a property into the land value and the improvement value. So what's on up to the surface of the property is land value, and what's built on top is improvement.
Correct.
Land tax is just on the land
Absolutely.
value. And all around Australia, the governments have the Valuer General fix the land value. They work out the land value. And they think, well, that's a pretty easy target now. Anyone who has land, we can tax a percentage each year of the land value. Could be 1%, 2%, or even almost 3% of the value each year
Yep.
of the land is land tax. Well, of course, there's some exceptions, and the biggest exception is the family home. If you're living in a home as your main residence and it's in your name, then there's no land tax.
Correct. Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, we like investment property, don't we?
Absolutely.
We can't just spend a week in each investment property.
That'd be good, but it doesn't work.
Not gonna work.
No.
So on investment properties, there'll be land tax. Now, we have to talk about land tax thresholds. So they'll only tax land values above a certain amount. So in some states, it'll be like $300,000. The first 300, no land tax. Above 300, you start paying land tax.
Correct.
In New South Wales, it's because the values are higher. It's over $1 million before you start paying land tax, and then you pay land tax on each dollar above that land
Correct.
threshold, and that percentage is 1.6. So it's okay to own land in a state. Just don't hold too much land.
Too much land, yeah.
Because then you start getting into land tax. Before I go on, each state has land tax. They don't only tax on properties in their state. They don't add together everyone's properties from all around Australia. They'll just say, you own this in this state, you pay land tax in this state. You may own properties in another state, but that's for the other state.
Correct.
Not
Yeah.
us.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your thoughts on land tax?
Excellent. Thank you, Tony. So with the land tax, I'm going to give an example. Many, many years ago, I had a customer that had 5 investment properties in Sydney in the same suburb. He loved the suburb.
Yeah.
So he just kept on buying. And no one sat down with him initially saying, if you buy, no accountants, financial advisors, no one sat down saying, hey, if you're going to buy all these properties in the same suburb, in the same state, you're subject to land tax. And the land tax threshold.
Add the values
Correct.
together.
So he had 1 owner occupied and 4 investments.
Yeah.
So he was collecting, I think, about 130, 140,000 a year in rental.
Yeah.
And he was paying about 32 or 33,000 in the government land tax.
Probably because he had about the land values.
The land values were...
$1.5 or $2 million.
Correct.
Was.
Yeah. So what happened is I sat down with this customer many, many years ago, and I said to him, you're collecting 130, 140 grand, and you're giving that to the government in land tax. So we put a plan in place, and I said to him, every time I see you and your wife talks about the house across the road. I said, happy wife, happy life. So why don't you sell your place, your owner occupied, there's no capital gains tax, which is your principal place of residence, move across the road to the other house, and then we take that money and we invest it.
Yeah.
He goes, that's a good idea. He followed my instructions and he goes, that's a good idea. They moved across the road and they've been happily in that place. We took that property that he sold for, I think, 1.72 million. I said, leave everything as it is, the loan, and we're going to take the 1.7 million and we're going to invest in different states.
Yep.
So we bought a dual occupancy in Western Australia,
Yep.
dual occupancy in Queensland,
Yeah.
and 2 houses in South Australia.
Wonderful.
So 4 properties,
Yeah.
well, 6 properties if you look at the dual key, 6 rentals, 4 properties.
Yeah.
And no land tax. His land tax went from 30,000 down to about just under 20, 19 something. Say call it 20 grand. He saved 10 grand in land tax and he's making now 6 rental incomes by using that sort of strategy.
Making more rental than he was getting.
That he was getting from one property.
Yeah.
So he was getting, I think, $750 a rental, and now with the 6 properties, he's close to $2,000 a week.
Perfect.
Hello.
Little thing about that, of course, you're buying properties around about the 500,000 mark because they give you the best rent return.
Correct. Yeah. And he bought the. I remember the Western Australian one. He bought it, I think, for like $460, and now it's worth nearly $900,000. So he's already made that capital growth as well.
Yeah.
And same in Queensland. So diversifying your portfolio.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Spreading your risks.
Correct.
Spreading your profits.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, the other thing is we sit down and we discuss about investment properties all around Australia. And January this year, I did a presentation to a big firm and talked about with all their financial planners about all these strategies about especially land tax. And the Victorian government turned around and they changed the land tax threshold January this year from 300,000 down to 50 grand.
That's right.
That's right. So what we do is when we sit down with clients, we educate them first, saying don't buy in Victoria. Number one, okay?
Or anywhere which has
lower land tax.
Yeah.
And then we look at the land values. So we have a strategic approach. So we sit down and we say, okay, if the land tax threshold is $300,000, we want to buy a land that's around the 200 and a $500,000 property. So we've got 100,000 in equity to grow before we hit the land tax threshold.
Land tax as a general, land value as a very general rule is like, if it's a home unit, it's about 20% or to 30% of the value of the home unit.
Correct, yes.
And if it's a house, it's going to be maybe around about 40%, sometimes 50% of the value.
That's right.
That you're paying. So if you look at a $500,000 property, if it's a house, land value probably 240,000. If it was a home unit, land value is going to be closer to 100,000.
That's right.
So that's how it works.
100%, yeah. So before you start buying an investment property, make sure you speak to somebody that understands these land tax thresholds, or even Google it, have a look at the different states. Yeah. And then sit down and have a look. There's so many things to. It's like, you want to jump in a bus. You don't just go, I'm going to jump on this bus without looking. Is this the number that I need to jump on the bus? Because you jump on the bus and you go to Byron Bay and you're like, hold on, I want to go Double Bay, wrong bay. So or Rose Bay. So you just want to make sure before you jump into an investment, do your due diligence. Speak to somebody that knows about investments, and speak to the professionals. So that's it for land tax.
Wonderful. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you, Tony.